Swedish investment in Nigeria. The labor strike has been, recurring issue. Before that, the contending issues, discussions around the minimum wage, with workers demanding better working conditions, higher wages, and improved benefits. The recent labor strike, which lasted for approximately 2 days, has seen a significant impact, of course, on the economy, disrupting activities and loss of productivity. Let's examine the implications of this again on economic growth and development. I'm being joined by a public policy commentator, Mr. Bolao Olojede from Lagos Island here in Lagos. Good afternoon, Mr. Olojede, and thank you for joining the program. Okay, Mr. Olojede, let's start with the strike action and what happened on that very day. After days of deliberation, at the end of the day, the NLC, TUC came out on their own, broke out of that tripartite committee and say, we are going on strike. Now, the strike was on for like 2 days. The grid was shut down. We also saw that aviation, airlines and all of that could not fly. And of course, impact on the Nigerian economy and projections for an economy that is struggling. How does this come to you? Did you think that strike was ill-advised?
The strike, anytime we have a strike like this, it's always very bad for the economy. So you can imagine the implication of shutting down the national grid for 24 hours or more, which was what we had the last time. In my office, for example, we had to power the entire day on diesel generator. And I'm sure we were not the only person. Most of the people in Lagos who were affected were probably, government workers. Offices were shut down, but a lot of private offices still open. But they opened at tremendous cost, because there was literally nothing. Transportation became very costly. The healthcare must have been horrible. People who require
All right, apologies there, audio loss during that conversation. Mr. Bola Olojede, I don't know if you can hear me, but we cannot hear you at this end.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, now we can hear you. So you need to, your submission, you need to start all over again, please.
Okay. I was saying that every time there is a strike, we lose tremendously economically. And I gave an example of the last one where the national grid was shut down. So in my office, we had to run generator throughout that day, diesel generator. Even at the individual level, you had people who had stuff in the fridge that went bad over the couple of days where there was no light. Not to talk of effect on institutions like healthcare, like education. Students came to school and were turned back home. So every time we had situations in which we shut down the economy, it is a loss, especially for us at this time when we're trying to get out of a lot of troubles that we have found. So it's always a disaster.
All right, now subsidy is gone. We're going to talk about that too, because it seems like there is a sort of intervention ongoing. But before we get there, my question to you now will be 494,000, and that's about 9.5 trillion naira in a year, according to the calculation being done by economists and, of course, government. How feasible is this, considering a country that runs a budget of a little above 20 trillion naira?
It doesn't work. Number one, what we are asking for is probably like maybe 1,500% increase in minimum wage. It will be a Guinness Book of Records kind of increase. I don't think anything like that has happened anywhere in the world where you increase minimum wage by 1,500% at a go. Apart from that is the issues of capacity to pay. Considering where we are right now, I don't think that the federal government, there's not a matter of thing. We cannot pay 490 unless what we're telling the government is, okay, we've been saying, oh, there have been a lot of note printing, currency printing and all of that. Maybe we're saying, go and print more notes and pump it into the economy. When you dramatically pump cash into the economy and there is no increase in production, what will happen, what you will get is inflation, not growth. So, to my mind, what we need to do is be able to increase minimum wage moderately, not 490,000 naira, and then ask ourselves, what took away the purchasing power of the current level of earning? What can we do in that space? A very good example is food. The amount of disposable income that is being spent on food has gone up dramatically. So it means that part of what took away the purchasing power of the current earning is food. It is also energy. So what can we do in that space to moderate those huge inflationary pressure being driven by food and energy, food in particular? If we intervene in that area, we may not need to be demanding 1,500% increase in minimum wage, which will be calamitous to the economy. In fact, before it is even announced, when they hear that, oh, it has been approved, some of them will be receiving letters at home for increase in rent, because everybody is watching. Everybody that provides service or give you, provide anything or the other is also hearing the same news. So it is not possible in terms of ability to pay. It does not make sense in terms of the inflationary pressure that it will exert. So can we get a modest increase and then complement this with fiscal intervention that will help us moderate inflation, which has taken away the purchasing power of the current earth?
This also will be binding on private sector players, and that's where my question comes, my next question. With the challenges on business environment, ease of doing business, and we even see companies leaving the country, do you think that they would even be able to pay as much as that? Talking about the private sector now.
I don't, to be frank, I don't think we're going to get all those humongous demand by NLC being sorted out. I think it will be something much less moderate, maybe in the 100,000 naira, or probably even less than that. That's probably what will happen. Now, the leaked memo, there was a leaked memo that was talking about certain interventions. Those are the kind of things that will complement whatever we gain from the minimum wage, moderate increase in minimum wage. So those issues that were listed on that memo will help to address food inflation, for example. So if you take the plot, our inflation curve, and you see all those item for item or the total headline inflation, you see that food is the key driver. While headline inflation is at 30-something, food is already at the 40-something. So anything we do to moderate food inflation, anything we do to also take a pinch off the energy pressure will complement a moderate increase in a minimum wage. Otherwise, we will not only drive public finances crazy, we will also create a distortion in the private sector as well. Because as a pressure comes in on the private sector to want to do something, and that might just lead to layoff, which people will say, okay, this is how much I can afford to pay in wages. So 50%, you can all go home. I will make do with all this, the remaining 50%. This is not where we need to go. And I'm sure that this is not what NLC seeks to achieve. We must all come together, therefore, and look at a win-win situation for as a way forward on the minimum wage.
Now, this argument about minimum wage lately, I see that the issue of hike in electricity tariff is not really on the front burner anymore. we have Band A customers who are paying about 300% hike in electricity tariff. And that has stayed because it's been on for months now. So what do you think also around that and the impact on businesses and on individuals? Because if I'm paying ×3 for electricity, then I might want to also ask for ×3 of my salary.
See, Tolu, we are on Band A in my office where I am. I would rather pay that Band A fee than run my generator for the hours of work that we spend in this office. That is, you can put that to the bank. That is the reality that is on ground. The day NLC, shut down the grid and we had to run generator, we closed earlier. We had to ask people, please leave, because we don't want to continue to run that generator. So it is a lot more costly for us to run that generator than to pay the Band A bill. That is a reality. Interestingly, at home also, I'm on Band A. The piece, it was even my wife that first commented that, look, all the noise that are in the neighborhood, when you come in the evening, generators are booming everywhere. You can't even have a little peace. Honestly, I do not mind. So my view may be contrarian, it may be unpopular. I know maybe less than 5% of consumers are on that Band A as we speak, but it's been good to me. I prefer it to generators and not.
Well, indeed, yes. Coincidentally, I'm also on Band A, but many would argue with you that you're a businessman, you're a private businessman, and a private person, or maybe with a small business, might also have maybe one or two to complain about that. But let me also ask you that.
Let me
go ahead.
Short.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think that small businesses prefer generator to paying that.
Okay, I think we need to do, we might have to do a sampling of opinions with regards to this. I think I'm going to embark on that, and we'll then have to talk about this again on the show and see what people would, how the reactions would be. Well, let's talk about the oil market. I'd like us to just do some around the price of energy, actually. We see that there's a hike too across the board, and many say PMS should be selling at almost the same rate. It might not be the same, but almost the same rate as diesel. That's maybe like 1,000 naira. But in Nigeria, we're still selling for 600, in some cases 650 and all of that. And it seems like there is an intervention. That's the word I'm using. I'm not saying subsidy here. But I don't know, in this international politics that is playing out in the crude oil market and, of course, the refining market, what are you catching up here?
Well, I would also like to leave it for people to generally pick their own truth from what might be going on. If you have a commodity, I'm just using arbitrary number.
Okay.
You have a commodity that was 600 naira. I mean, this is a commodity that you don't produce in your country, you import it. So you spend dollars to get it. So if that commodity was 600 naira when dollar was 900,
yes,
and it is still 600 naira when dollar is 1,500, go and figure out your own truth around that. It is plain. You can see that there is certain intervention that is going on. Call it subsidy, call it intervention, call it whatever. But there is some sort of attempt to manage the situation to ensure that it doesn't get, more intense on the consumer than it already has become over the last 1 year. So whether government likes to complain, describe it in whatever term there is, what is clear is that you cannot have an imported product price remain at the same level even when the exchange rate has literally doubled. That's the reality. So people can figure that.
Interesting conversation. Now, before I let you go, Mr. Olojede, on this show, we've had many times, myself and you, we've talked about the economic reforms instituted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course, this transition period of seeing all of them become fruitful for Nigerians. What is your outlook, even as we still face all of these challenges?
Okay, I love the so-called leaked memo. I hope it will transform very fast out of being a leaked memo to a formal communication. You see, on the monetary side of things, we've seen certain efforts being made by Mr. Cardoso, to stabilize things. But what we really need to complement whatever effort is coming from that place is fiscal intervention. The items that were mentioned in that leaked memo will help us to jumpstart fiscal intervention, which will help the inflation curve to inflect, and we can begin to see a totally different economic environment. So I am optimistic that if we bring in fiscal intervention to complement whatever is going on the monetary part, a lot of the problem is not coming from the monetary anyway, we will achieve a situation in which inflation will slow down and possibly turn the other way. And the economy will be the better for it. I'm optimistic. I'm forward that we'll get there.
It's a good way to leave it, Mr. Gbola Olojede. I must thank you so much, public policy commentator. Thank you for talking to us on Business Nigeria this afternoon. I wish you a great weekend.
Thank you, too, for having me.